Good Friday afternoon, and welcome to the third meeting of the General Obligation Bond Streets and Storm Drainage Subcommittee. I hereby call the meeting to order. We have interpreters to provide Spanish translation. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Hello, my name is Mario Barajas. Together with my colleague Carmen Cota, we will be serving as today's interpreter. I'll now take a moment to introduce myself to our Spanish-speaking audience. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Mario Barajas y estaré sirviéndoles como intérprete para la reunión de hoy junto con mi colega Carmen Cota. Les pedimos, por favor, si acaso van a estar dando un comentario público, tratar de hablar lentamente, claramente, y de esa manera podemos interpretarle lo que esté diciendo de la manera más completa posible. Gracias. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very, very much. There will be a public comment period during item 3 on today's agenda. Planning on reserving 30 minutes for public comments, but we'll decide the duration and time limit for each speaker based on the available time and the number of individuals registered to speak. If you're attending in person and would like to speak, you'll need to sign up at the kiosk located at the entrance of the council chambers, and that's before the call to the public begins. If you're attending virtually or watching a recording and would like to speak at future Go-Bond Committee meeting, please note you'll need to register at least 2 hours prior to the start. You may register to speak at Phoenix.gov/bond/meetings. Our first agenda item is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
Second.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Well, this can be our second to the last meeting or our last meeting, depending on what we drive through today. We have a extraordinarily critical task of making some reductions to the original proposal by staff. I know there's some additional news that you'll hear today that might help us get there. But know that every individual on this committee's opinion will be respected, and that hopefully, as Mr. Boyd said a couple of meetings ago, or was it last meeting, we can get to a unanimous decision, but don't let that get in the way. It's okay to dissent. That's part of the democratic process, and that is okay. So with that, I believe that staff has prepared a presentation on the results of the ranking exercise that was completed by subcommittee members. Following the presentation and public comment, we'll give subcommittee members an opportunity to ask general questions about the information presented, but please hold off on deliberating until after the public comment period. And let's proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. We've got a quick presentation to do a review of some of the things that you've already seen, just to get us back and reacquainted, and then Adam Miller from Budget and Research will present to you the results of the survey that the committee took and show how those came out, and then we'll, as you mentioned, take public comment and get into the deliberations. So I will get us started here. Just a quick review of what we've got on the agenda today, a quick review of the charge of the subcommittee and what we're doing, what our goal is today, a review of the identified projects. We're not going to go into the detail that we have before, just a quick overview, and then a discussion, as we said, on the project ranking and results, and that will lead into the public comment, discussion, questions, and then any next steps that need to come out from there. The charge of the subcommittee, again, is to determine the highest priority, first and foremost, determine the highest priority projects and programs of those on your list. Those are the 7 areas of projects and programs that we've been talking about, and to get those prioritized in a fashion that shows what's the most important to this subcommittee and that recommendation to the executive committee. Secondarily, to recommend funding values for the items that you're moving forward, knowing that there is a reduced amount for the total bonds, getting down to the 500 million and making sure they fit within that. And then making sure that we can only, we know that we only refer items, needs that cannot be reasonably be deferred. A quick overview of the numbers. The total prioritized capital needs that went to all of the subcommittees is $647 million. We know that the total goal that we need to reach is bringing that down to 500 million. So we're talking about a gap or a reduction of $147 million in total, which across the board equates to a 22.7% reduction. So this is a slide showing what that looks like across each of the subcommittees. The Streets and Storm Drainage Subcommittee on the far right started with $160.6 million worth of prioritized projects, and to get to a reduction of the 22.7% would take it down to $124.1 million, so about $36 million reduction. Just a quick review of the prioritized projects that have been presented to you, and I'm actually going to hand it over to both Keeney Knutson, our Street Transportation Director, and Eric Froberg, our City Engineer, to go over these very quickly, and then we have some good news, an important development on the 2 drainage projects that Eric will share with you when it gets to him. So I'll turn it over to Keeney next to go over the street transportation items.
Thank you, Mario. Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee, I'll first kind of do a quick overview. We have 7 programs within the streets and storm drain programs. I'm going to talk about the first 5, and I'm going to turn it over to Eric to talk to the last 2. The first one is the equity-based mobility program. There's $20.1 million attached to that right now with the existing amount requested in the bond as a proposed program. I will mention again that this would be leveraging T2050 fundings and in addition to our T2050 funds to tackle the same issue of providing mobility access. And it is scalable, so whether the subcommittee would like to move up or down or stay the same with this, it is the option of the subcommittee. With pavement maintenance, similarly, it's a scalable item. We have $35 million, and this is focused on our neighborhood city streets and be able to improve the pavement of our neighborhood residential streets. Storm drain replacement program, that's to identify and replace damaged and degrading storm drain lines across the city that are this corrugated metal pipe. I think we've talked about in the previous subcommittee meetings that this $28 million, we feel that we could, without too much issue of reducing that by about $14 million based on the fact that we have to do a citywide assessment of these lines before we can start actually implementing and replacing or repairing these lines. So that is something that the subcommittee could take under advisement when they're looking for that 22.7% reduction or a portion of their. The neighborhood traffic mitigation program, that's $12 million attached to that. That's also scalable, and that's to be able to provide traffic calming measures within neighborhood streets to slow down traffic and reduce traffic volumes. And then finally, from the street side, is the $25 million requested for implementation of Vision Zero and the Road Safety Action Plan that was unanimously approved by Council a few weeks ago. And this would be on top of the $10 million annually that the city has already allocated to this funding, but we do have a lot of needs in this area. So the $25 million or whatever the subcommittee would allocate towards that would be helpful in adding to the $10 million we have locally, but we also use that local funds to be able to leverage our opportunities to seek federal funding in that regard. I'll turn it over to Eric to share news about the 2 drainage program projects.
Thank you, Kenny, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the subcommittee. We'll go over the 2 drainage programs here, and then we'll talk about a little bit of the good news that we have related to these 2. So as you recall, the Hohokam drainage program there are 8 projects that are contained within there, but as far as scalability, they really are 2 sets of 4. The projects, have to go, projects 1 through 4, and then 5 through 8 need to go together. Those, originally we were estimating the GEO bonds portion to total $27.2 million. The Levine Drainage Project, which spurred out of the Levine Drainage Area Master Plan and a follow-up study that we did, ended up identifying 4 projects that we could do. Each one of those are independent, so as the committee chooses, they could elect to move forward from none of them to all 4 of them or anywhere in between. The total of those 4 was just under $12 million. And so now to the good news, and kind of a follow-up to Subcommittee Member Tieford's question about working with the Flood Control District and cost shares. And we had talked about how all projects with the Flood Control District, the cost share is negotiable, but we ended up, 50-50 was generally their starting point. So for conservatism, we ended up going with 50-50. Well, through either some great negotiating skills on my part, just kidding, not really that, but just by some good fortune, the Flood Control District is moving towards a different cost share, more towards a policy change, more towards a 65-35 cost share. So as we're going forward, I'm fairly confident that these projects, whichever ones of these you move forward, could be applied that same cost share, the 65 for the flood control and 35 for the city. So just kind of simple math, and I did provide the updated numbers to Adam, so as we're going through, you can see how that affects them. But in general, if all of the flood control district projects, these 2 from the Hohokam and the Levine, were to move forward, the numbers go down in total by a little more than $11 million. So just right off the top, you can get the same amount of drainage work for $11 million less. Now, if you decide to take out, a few less or not move forward all of them, that $11 million would be a little bit less, but we can all work through that when we go through when you start talking about the different projects. So some good news.
Any questions for staff at this point?
I do have a question, Mr. Chairman and staff. I do appreciate the information, the additional information you provided regarding the flood control projects. By my calculation, you show the City of Phoenix contributions to flood control were like $25.5 million in 1 year. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Subcommittee Member Tieford, if you're in regards to the memo that we provided, yes, that is correct. So the property tax from the City of Phoenix, we contribute $25.5 million to their overall budget.
So my question is, over the life of this 5-year GO bond program, 5 years, we would be contributing something on the order of $130 million. And so the money for the Hohokam and Levine projects is not insignificant. It's total like $39 million from the city. But compared with $125 million that maybe city residents are contributing to the flood control district, how do we have, I presume you have other projects that are being funded with flood control, or?
Sure. Mr. Chair, Subcommittee Member Tieford, yes, we have many other projects that we are working in cooperation with the Flood Control District. One thing to consider is, as you saw, the last year's was $25 million. The Flood Control District's charge is very regional in nature, so there are years where we contribute, and many years where we, the City of Phoenix, the residents of City of Phoenix, contribute more to the Flood Control District than we immediately receive back. Some of the projects that we do, that we work with other jurisdictions or with jurisdictions that are upstream of us, right? They do projects which then benefit us, even though it doesn't necessarily cost us money. So the Flood Control District is very much a regional look. So,
and if I may, Mr. Chair, add just another point to that, which is that there are ongoing annual operating and maintenance costs that are part of what we contribute as well. So it's both the capital and the operating and maintenance that are being covered by the annual contribution that you see there. So I don't have the specific numbers here on those, but it's a total amount.
Thank you. I guess the bottom line is getting the more than the contributions that they were planning to provide for these two projects. I mean, it's certainly reasonable. So thank you.
Any additional questions? Mr. Boyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Froberg, or Mr. Miller. So is the new city cost going to be Hohokam 19 million roughly and Levine 8 million roughly? Is that what I'm looking at as what the new request is?
Mr. Chair, Subcommittee Member Boyd, yes, that's very close. That math's very close, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions?
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question.
Yes.
I want to make sure I've got clear. In the past, we relied on a 50-50 cost share, so Phoenix would have to come up with 50%. Maricopa County Flood Control would have to come up with 50%. So credit to the Flood Control District of Maricopa County and your great negotiating skills. 65-35, I think that's huge. I've never heard of anything like that. That's a precedent. So what I'm hearing is we're going to benefit. Phoenix is going to be a beneficiary of $11 million in this estimate that we can apply towards perhaps other critical issues. Well, congratulations. Thank you.
Any additional questions? I know that we have Mr. Olson on the line, so before we go on to each item, Mr. Olson, I'll be looking to you to see if you have any questions. Are there any questions you have for staff, Mr. Olson?
I am just fine for the moment.
Thank you.
That's good news on the flood projects.
Thank you. Proceed, Mario.
At this point, I will turn it over to Adam Miller.
Thank you, Mario. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, I will be going over the results of the ranking exercise that the subcommittee participated in after its last meeting. On the slide, you're looking at, again, a list of the projects that Keeney and Eric reviewed, the 5 streets-related programs and the 2 drainage projects, and again, those totaling up to the $160.6 million. Before we get into the actual results of the ranking, I want to remind the subcommittee and the community that the results of this ranking exercise are not binding. This is intended purely as a starting point for subcommittee deliberations. The questions asked of the subcommittee were to provide a rank-ordered list of the projects, to identify projects requiring more funding than what was identify projects that should be funded at a lower level, and then finally, if there were any projects that the subcommittee members felt should not move forward with this bond program, you could select to not fund those. So we received 8 responses from the committee members that were officially members at the time of the last meeting. We are going to be presenting the ranking based on the median value, and the average value will be used to address any tiebreakers. So what does this mean? If the median value is a low number, then the majority of members ranked the project high. If the median value is a high number, then the majority of subcommittee members ranked that project low. And if we had 2 projects that had the same median value, then we would order those based on their average ranking, low to high. So moving forward with the results, the highest ranked project was the Vision Zero implementation program. I'll go ahead and just hold here for just a minute to orient everybody to this table. Looking at the table left to right, you see the rank position. In the first column, the project name, followed by the median value. As I mentioned before, we asked for high, low. The column after median is the highest rank provided by a subcommittee member, then the lowest rank given, and finally the average. I'm going to go ahead and populate this table. I'll then move to another slide that will have the same projects listed in the same order, but with the funding details. So second in the ranking was the equity-based transportation mobility. Third, the Levine flood mitigation projects. Fourth, pavement maintenance supplement. Fifth, Hohokam drainage program. Sixth, storm drainage replacement program. And finally, the neighborhood traffic mitigation. Again, I'm going to move to the next slide with the funding details. The order of the projects will remain in this ranked order. So here you can see the ranking, and again, just to orient folks to the table, you see the ranking, the project. Then what you see is the cost estimate that was provided in the capital needs study. We also asked committee members to identify more or less or do not fund. What you're looking at is the count of subcommittee members that selected those boxes for each of those questions. And then finally, in the column on the far right, you see the running total. I'm going to hand it back over to Mario to quickly go over some of the approaches that the subcommittee may want to take as it considers its final ranking process. I do want to reiterate our recommendation and comments that our chairman made previously, that we're certainly ready to entertain questions on the ranking exercise and the process, but we would encourage the subcommittee to go to public comment prior to beginning your deliberation over any changes to the ranking outcome.
Mario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Adam. So we actually covered these last week, so I'm going to go over these slides quickly because you've seen them before, but some options and how you get to where you're going. One is the priority ranking and solidifying how you prioritize the projects, and then potentially just drawing a line at the $124 million mark. That's what's in, and then below that is what's out. Another option would be to approach it as across the board. All the projects are in, all the programs are in. You just make a 22.7% reduction to all of them and figure out how we get there. It's a little bit more tough on the drainage projects to do that because they're not as scalable, but that's another way to go about this. And then finally, another option just for illustration purposes is to do unequal types of adjustments, moving some higher, some lower, and not necessarily trying to get them all either at a line that you draw or across the board adjustments, but moving them up and down, ultimately trying to get to that $124 million mark this way. So those are just some ways to go about this, certainly not anything that we're directing. I think one thing I want to mention at this time before we go any further is there were some questions that were raised by Subcommittee Member Boyd that we weren't able to get back to him on. Some of that was included in what was sent out in your memo, but there was a question regarding how the subcommittee can make a recommendation with regard to the bond authorization and whether specific projects can be directed to be maintained, therefore not changed in any way after the voters approve those. And so I'm going to hand it over to Chris Fazio, Deputy Budget and Research Director, to talk about how that works.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. So the crux of the question, as we understood it, is can the committee ensure that there's voter protection at the project level? In other words, that council or staff couldn't adjust money between projects. The scope of bond authorization is dependent on language in the voter-approved bond proposition. Staff and council cannot transfer authorization between bond propositions, but council, through the budgeting process, can transfer funds within a bond proposition. Bond proposition language is crafted by the city's finance department in consultation with legal counsel. The subcommittee could conceivably recommend crafting a bond proposition in a way that ensures certain projects' funding amounts are set by voters. In that event, the recommendation could be noted in the subcommittee's report, which may or may not forward that recommendation to the city council, which may or may not incorporate that in the actual ballot proposition. Generally speaking, project-specific authorization is discouraged as a practice because it limits the ability to react to variances between actual costs and contract amounts as compared to the estimates that are provided at the time that we're presenting these projects to the committee. I can take any follow-up questions.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none.
All right, and that concludes our presentation portion, Mr. Chairman, and we could go to the public comment next if that.
Sure, let's go ahead and go to, we'll now move to the public comment period on our agenda. Will the city attorney please explain the rule for the public comment for the Go Bond Committee hearing, please?
Members of the public may speak to comment on the General Obligation Bond Program. The City Code requires speakers to present their comments in a respectful and courteous manner. Profane language, threats, or personal attacks on members of the public, council members, committee members, or staff are not allowed. A person who violates these rules will lose the opportunity to continue to speak. The committee and staff cannot discuss or comment on matters relating to pending claims or litigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 speakers registered today, including 2 virtual participants wishing to speak. I'll give each speaker adequate time since we have plenty of times. We have 2 folks that, we have no folks here that are going to speak in person. We'll go ahead and start with the virtual participants. When your name is called, your audio device will be unmuted, and you may begin your remarks. At the conclusion of the virtual speakers, we don't have any folks in person, but if you would like to speak and you're here, please feel free to come join us. Will staff please call the first speaker?
Our first speaker for today is Jocelyn Pearson, followed by Nicole Rodriguez. Jocelyn, are you on the line? Jocelyn, if you're on the line, we cannot hear you. Jocelyn, I think we'll go ahead and come back to you. Our next speaker is Nicole Rodriguez. Nicole?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and committee members. I'm here to speak about the 2 programs that are most of interest to me and many others. The highest priority of all listed projects, and arguably above all other city bond items, are the equity-based transportation mobility and Vision Zero implementations. Phoenix is ranked as one of the deadliest cities in the nation regarding vehicle collisions and traffic fatalities. The number 1 killer of children in the U.S. are vehicle collisions, one of our most vulnerable populations. We demand safer streets because we need them. People should not die merely for sitting at a bus stop, walking to school, biking to work, commuting to a second or third job. No one that relies on accessibility mobility devices and support should ever be treated as second-class citizens. No more windshield biases as we're looking at these today. We need safe streets for all. Both are programs that are needed for our most vulnerable populations and to put Phoenix in alignment with the City of Phoenix Climate Action Plan as well. Both programs would benefit affordable routes to school, work, home, and basic necessity needs. Both programs will improve economic development, housing development, safe routes to schools, and property tax growth. These programs are not charitable overlays. These programs are about public health and safety, not private property protections, not nice to have amenities or weekend recreation. These programs are about protecting our most vulnerable, designing safer streets for all, and reducing deaths caused by vehicle collisions, which is a growing nationwide crisis. Thank you very much.
Our final virtual speaker is Jocelyn Pearson. Jocelyn, are you able to hear us? You could please check your microphone settings. We cannot hear you. Jocelyn, we still cannot hear you.
Why don't we go ahead and move on, and if we get Jocelyn on the line, more than happy to yield to her if she can be heard or can speak. I'm fine with that if the committee members are okay with that. Okay? Okay. She is on the line, and we're just not hearing her. More than happy to yield for a couple more seconds here, and then we can move on, and if we get her, then we can have her public comments. Okay, so when we figure out that technical issue, we'll have Jocelyn join us, but in the meantime, while this isn't completely closed, the public comment period, we'll close it now for purposes of beginning our conversation. As you know, this is really where the rubber is going to hit the road as it relates to our mission here and our recommendation to the executive committee. For all intents and purposes, we have a $37 million goal here to reach. We know that we took care of some of it already with the Hohokam and Levine, assuming that we would move forward with all those projects within that specific category. So we've made a little bit of a dent in the goal of the $37 million. So with that, the chair will entertain any dialogue. This is the time to have that dialogue. Roll your sleeves up and get down to business. Mr. Gupta.
After looking at the $37 million debt that we have to deal with, my suggestion would be that since we have the ranking and 1 through 7 and try to, see public safety as a priority, and the other lower ranking projects should be affected more, and that's what my personal opinion would be.
Okay. 1 second. I just want to make sure that we understand what's in front of us right now, so that because this is a dynamic process, right? Staff has put together a program to try to capture what it is that we're proposing, so you actually have a visual of that, and that's what's in front of you right now. Did I say that right, correctly?
Yes, Mr. Chair. What you're seeing in the far left column will be the rank as it's being discussed in this meeting. The second column is the rank based on the median value from the survey. If there's adjustments to project costs that are discussed, you'll see that in the revised cost column, and then the cumulative column tracks the cumulative total of revised costs.
Okay, and does this include Levine and Hohokam? The change? It does not.
Mr.
Right?
Chairman, no.
Can we go ahead?
That could be a motion to.
Can we add? Okay, can we add that right now? And are you saying that as we move forward, we're going to need motions for these specific cuts or these specific actions? It sounds like almost a staff-driven issue when you're talking from 50-50 to 65-35. It was a net effect of a conversation that was had with Maricopa County. Are you saying that we need a motion for that, to make that adjustment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend a motion to adjust the Levine flood mitigation project and Hohokam drainage project based on the revised 65-35 cost share.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Graham. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Acuna. Is there any discussion? All's in favor say aye.
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 All's opposed. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, we've gotten one thing done. Yes. All right. Any other comments? Mr. Acuna.
Mr. Chairman, staff, members of the public, Phoenix is becoming a destination of choice. I mean, we can see that on the streets. And I think one of the tasks that the subcommittee has is how can we support the staff with some public safety elements. Vision Zero. Vision Zero seems to be one of the top candidates that keeps coming to the surface. And the more I learn about it, the more impressed I am with Vision Zero. And I also know we've got to find a place to get those funds from. I'd like to suggest a motion, Mr. Chairman, in the context of supporting Vision Zero in terms of an increase. And in all fairness to the taxpayer and the folks that got to cough up the dollars, we got to find a place to get it from. I'd like to make a suggestion. Number 7, the lowest ranked item. If we could take those funds and apply most of them to Vision Zero, I would like to suggest a motion to that effect.
Is there a second? Mr. Gupta seconds. Is there any discussion?
You have one at
yeah,
the end.
one.
Mr. Graham?
Within the spirit of, I think there's a lot of merit to that, and in the spirit of maybe accommodating some of what we see here and the comments we've heard, and also maybe moving this process forward, I guess I would like to entertain some sort of opportunity to take most of those funds and move them to Vision Zero and potentially sweep some percentage of them off the table to keep moving us toward the goalpost a little bit.
Mr. Acuna, are you amenable to coming up with a specific number?
10
8,
and
maybe
2 or
10,
9 and
maybe
3?
7, and then the remainder being cut?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's do that. What's your recommendation?
Well, I'd like to open this up to this talented group of people to throw out some suggestions, because this is really a team effort. I think
It seems like we have general consensus that's the case. Now we're just sort of slicing some hairs here.
Mr.
Right?
Graham, can you give me a hint? Just throw me a couple of fingers up there. Not all your fingers on.
Yeah. How about this?
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think he signaled 9.
I saw 9.
9?
Yeah.
Maybe moving 9 up to Vision Zero and 3.03 that would come out of our target goal of 37 million.
Excellent suggestion.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to that effect, Mr. Acuna? I know that it was motioned and second. Do we need to withdraw the second, or do we need to just amend his motion? I need a Robert's Rules person here.
I just amend the motion at this point.
Okay, go ahead and amend your motion.
If I get it wrong, help me out here, lawyer.
You're doing fine.
I'd like to make a motion to transfer $9 million from item 7, neighborhood traffic mitigation, to Vision Zero.
And the 3 million going as a cut?
3 million as a cut.
Mr. Gupta seconds. Is there any discussion?
I do want to recognize Kenny on this, because I know this is a very important element to you being the director. So having worked with you many years, I have a lot of respect for you, and I wish you the best in implementing public safety for all our families on the street. So this one's for you.
Thank you,
I agree. Same.
I'm sorry. I have Mr. Boyd. We recognized Mr. Graham, and then we'll go Mr. Boyd, and then to Mr. Tiefert. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was a little bit before the motion, but I'm just so elated by the motion that I'll just say I'll be an enthusiastic yes on this. Thank you.
Mr. Tiefert.
I would like further discussion before we agree to that. We still have quite a bit to cut, and I appreciate Mr. Acuna's suggestion to put more into Vision Zero, but we have a long way to cut, and before we adopt that proposal, I suggest we have more discussion.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Yeah, no, proceed. And then we
Mr.
have Mr. Boyd again.
Mr. Chair and subcommittee members, I went back to reflect upon the mission that we have before us, and the statement that we need to determine which projects cannot reasonably be deferred is where my perspective is right now with this recommendation. I would agree that we first begin with the overall reductions that we need to comply with the suggestion of minimizing our overall 160 by a certain percentage, and then coming back with the other discussion about adding in funds for funding other projects.
Okay. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'll be a little bit more substantive in my discussions this time around. The good news, the $12 million from the flood control ones goes beyond the 22.7% in both of those, which makes me happy in that regard and a little bit more confident. Running some of these other numbers, if we were to try to do 22.7 across, you're looking at basically, if we'd had to do the cut to the Vision Zero side house, you'd have to do something like $5 million. We can more than pay for that off with the neighborhood traffic mitigation. I am confident in letting that one go, as I said at the last meeting, because I do think it's a luxury. I would love to have this, but I think it's not as important as the Vision Zero that we've had discussed here. I'm trying to look for some other ones. I guess, actually, I apologize, this discussion is going to end with a question, I think, to staff, which is to Director Knudsen. At one point, you said that the storm drainage had a possible reduction to $14.4 million, depending on an assessment. Was that a reduction that the committee would be making, and you would basically not be doing as much, or was that something along the lines of what we just heard from flood control, where there's actual savings to be had?
Mr. Chair, Subcommittee Member Boyd, members of the subcommittee, the intent in the last meeting when we offered that up was to be able to provide you an opportunity to be able to reduce it from 28.8 million down to 14.4. We had done the back of the napkin work on that in between the first and second meetings to be able to offer that, but that would be an action that the subcommittee could make, just similar to what the other motions that's already been made.
Okay, what I'd like to do is keep the conversation germane to the motion at hand right now. If it's germane, Mr. Tiefert, if it's germane to the motion at hand, absolutely. Is it germane to the motion at hand?
Yes.
Okay, proceed.
Mr. Chairman and staff, the 14.4 million, what does that cover? Does that, at one point you had suggested this is like a two-step program on the storm drainage repairs. It's an initial assessment, and then secondly would be repairs. Is the 14.4 to cover the assessment, or would that be a smaller amount, hopefully?
Mr. Chair, Subcommittee Member Tiefert, members of the subcommittee, the intent of that was to, when we originally put this together, it was putting in both an assessment and a construction going from years 1 all the way through 5. When we looked at it a little bit closer, because of that citywide assessment, to be able to get an understanding, and also put us in a position to be able to look at this from multiple bond program cycles going forward. The assessment would actually happen in the first 2 years of the 5-year program, and then we would have capital funding dedicated to repair or replacing those storm drains in years 3 through 5. So that 14.4 would cover the assessment and also repair or replacement over years 3 through 5.
Okay, there's a stand by 1 second, please. Hang on 1 sec, please. In order to close out items and move them forward, there's a motion on the table right now that we supplant $9 million into Division Zero implementation and take $3.03 million and put it toward our goal of the $37 million reduction. If your comments are in relation to that, more than happy to discuss it. If we want to discuss those additional items, we can do that after the motion, if you're okay with that. If it's germane to this, Mr. Tiefert, not a problem. Okay?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I would argue against that motion because I think we need to cut first per the Councilwoman's or Subcommittee Woman's suggestion, and then we can come back and reallocate. Thank you.
Okay, prior to closing this discussion and taking a vote, Mr. Olson.
I agree with the comment that was just made. I think that our first focus should be getting down to whatever the number is that we're supposed to get, somewhere in the 120s, as I recall. And after that, then we can look at moving things between programs.
Okay, there's a motion and no, yes, Mr. Graham, is it to the point?
Yeah, just one final comment. I think I just want to articulate that I have great confidence in our ability to continue to make progress pretty quickly here, especially with what we've heard. So I'm continue to be in support of the motions and a vote.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Do we need to do a voice vote or do we do a roll call vote? Staff?
I'd say roll call to make the record easier to reflect the votes.
Okay, if you're in favor of the motion, say yes. If you are opposed, say no. Roll call vote, please.
Committee Member Tiefert?
No.
Committee Member Acuna?
Yes.
Committee Member Boyd?
Yes.
Committee Member Coles-Henry?
No.
Committee Member Gupta?
Yes.
Committee Member Graham,
Yes.
Committee Member Olson,
No.
and Chairman Martin.
No.
What was the vote? It was a tie, 4-4, which the
Fails.
motion fails.
I don't think that issue's closed. I think what I'm hearing from the committee is that they would like, they know that it's a dynamic, what I heard is it's a little more of a dynamic process than picking one item and moving it around. I think that the committee is, what I heard is they're sensitive to this and want to put more money into that. We just want to take a look at it from a more global perspective with all the other categories. As a follow-up,
I'll move that we eliminate
Go ahead,
all the
Mr.
funding
Olson.
from the Neighborhood Traffic Mitigation Program.
Say again, I'm sorry.
I'll move that we eliminate, as a step towards getting to our goal, that we eliminate item 7.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Boyd.
I'm okay moving this to the side. I guess the question is, what do we do with that? And I'm guessing, never mind. It's a fluid process to putting things through each way. I'm trying to get to the count. I would almost rather we actually just kind of had the discussion over all of them instead of going after them one by one after we just said that is my only concern, because I'm trying to sit here with an Excel spreadsheet doing a calculation, trying to figure out how much we're getting there. But I'm okay, and I'll be flexible enough to say yes to this, just to say that that the project is gone and that $12 million is now flexible. I just don't want to say that that $12 million is now permanently in the bin. That's my only comment to this.
Understood. Ms. Coles-Henry.
I'm not comfortable voting to eliminate the project. It has value because it's here. I would like to hear more from staff if there's some type of adjustment to the number in terms of moving forward with a percentage of dollars that would be meaningful and significant. What would that look like? What's that amount, and what would it look like?
Mr. Chair, if I may make a suggestion in terms of how the discussion goes forward from here. It's okay if the committee wants to view some changes on the spreadsheet without making motions necessarily that are final. And so feel free to ask us to make some changes or plug some numbers into the spreadsheet for illustration for the purpose of advancing the discussion that aren't necessarily a motion. And so I think you could save a motion to the end if that helps you get to where we're trying to go. And so we can look at scenarios during the discussion if that's helpful.
Mr. Gupta.
Mr. Chair and staff, the suggestion for discussion would be that how about the lower priority items? There's a major cut instead of 22 or some percentage. If we do like a 50% cut on those items and then keep more funding towards the Vision Zero and the top priority 2. So that's is that a fair suggestion to cut, not completely take it off, but just to cut more towards from the lower priority items. Thank you.
Well, there is a motion and a second. We can have that motion withdrawn based on the information that staff has given in relation to us being able to manipulate this on an illustrative basis, or we can go ahead and proceed with that motion. The person that would have to withdraw it would have to...
I'm fine withdrawing the motion.
Okay. So the motion's been withdrawn. All right, now we can proceed. I think another piece of low-hanging fruit here is the storm drain program. We know that there's the $14 million that Mr. Tieford was talking about. Is there a motion to accept staff's recommendation to reduce the storm drainage program from 28 to, what would that number be, Eric?
It would be, Mr. Chair, it would be 14.4 would be the new number instead of 28.28. Is
there a motion to that effect?
I would move to adopt
Now,
this.
we can move this motion, right? 'Cause
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
just, this is real, so.
Yeah, this is real.
the-
I would move to adopt the staff recommendation to reduce the storm drain replacement program consistent with the numbers articulated by Mr. Knudsen.
Is there a second to that effect?
Second.
Second.
All right. Any additional any discussion? Oops, roll call vote. I was all ready to do the voice vote, so roll call vote?
Okay. Committee Member Tiford,
Yes.
Committee Member Cunha, Committee Member Boyd,
Yes.
Committee Member Coles Henry,
Yes.
Committee Member Gupta,
Yes.
Committee Member Graham,
Yes.
Committee Member Olson,
Yes.
and Chairman Martin.
Yes. Motion carries, Mr. Boyd, unanimously. Okay. So,
Mr. Chair, could staff remind me if we're shooting for 22 point whatever percent reduction, what's the total that we need to get down to?
approximately 37. It's just a little south of 37. 36.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, something.
That would be the reduction amount, and so the new target total would be 124.1 million. And as of right now, based on the two motions that have been approved, the cumulative total is 134.66 million.
Mr. Chair, real quickly, my number is that we've reduced 26.5 mil, roughly. Is that correct? Just so I can keep up with this?
Yes, I'm doing math in my head, but Adam is nodding, so I'm going to agree with you.
So we're at 12 million right now, give or take.
So
more to go.
To reach the target, you need about 10.56 million.
10.5 million.
To
and
reduce.
all of that can be done with number 7. Just saying. And we don't take any of the programs and influence them negatively. Gupta.
Chair, how about the pavement maintenance supplement program? That
Discussion on pavement supplement program.
Mr. Chairman, I would think if we're going to divert funds to other projects, I think pavement maintenance would be a high priority. I'm sure, like all the rest of you, I've been driving around the city some lately, and it feels like we're getting behind on pavement maintenance, and any additional money we can throw that direction would be, I think, well spent.
Is there anyone on the committee that feels extraordinarily strongly about neighborhood traffic mitigation?
I will say I think it's like a meritorious program. I think we all see where this is going. I'm going to agree that we may have to just let it go, but I don't want to lose sight of the sort of clouding over this of trying to get some more dollars back to Vision Zero program. So with that in mind, yeah, I'm not going to fight for it, certainly.
Mr. Chairman, I feel we could drop that. Actually, I felt we could drop project storm drain replacement and a neighborhood mitigation would get us to where we need to be. With the additional savings on the flood control projects, would free up as much as $15 million to be diverted to other projects.
So if you're at, go ahead, Mr. Olson.
It seems to me that what staff has told us about the Levine and Hohokam drainage programs, flood mitigation and drainage programs, is that if we cut this below the numbers that we have in the revised total here, we're walking away from a 35-65 match. We're walking away from 60 basically double that from the flood control district. I think that would be a bad idea. And we've already cut the drain replacement program by half. Seems to me that we should eliminate the traffic mitigation, neighborhood traffic mitigation item, which is our lowest priority, and then look at whether we need to move money between pavement maintenance, equity-based transportation, mobility, and Vision Zero.
To Mr. Graham's point, could we get to our percentage by striking neighborhood traffic mitigation, taking the net amount and moving that? It'd probably be about 1.53 million or something into the Vision Zero implementation. Do we know what that number is?
Mr. Chair, we can update the table to reflect that.
Would that be something you'd be comfortable with, Mr. Graham? At least it would enhance it a little bit, and I know there's some additional funds coming for that program.
I think certainly it'd be a good starting point for conversation. Yeah, do so.
You said 2 million, Mr. Boyd?
Yes, Mr. Chair. My calculation is we'd get 2 million excess off of that beyond the cap of the 36.
I show 1.47 million difference.
Yeah, that's yeah.
That's helpful. This is why I have you guys double check this Excel spreadsheet.
Check your formulas.
I hear we all are agreeing on at least to shave it off of the neighborhood traffic, so whatever the number is, that's not a...
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I've reflected here is reducing neighborhood traffic mitigation to zero and applying the balance to Vision Zero such that the total is the 124.1 million, if that's what the committee was heading towards.
That's my understanding. Yes.
I thought there was 10 point some million getting left over, which was going to get moved, or the whole 12 million?
So in order to reach our goal, the 36.5, we're at 10.5 that we need to reach, or whatever the number is.
So can we just move that and leave rest there?
So yeah, so what the conversation is striking neighborhood traffic mitigation, taking the net amount that remains and putting that into Vision Zero implementation.
Okay, sure.
And I'm looking at Mr. Graham to see if that satisfies his.
Yeah, I would. I think at this point I would move to adopt this iteration of the elimination of the neighborhood traffic mitigation and sweep the savings into Vision Zero over the threshold of our 124.1 million target.
Is there a second? Mr. Gupta seconds.
I'll second.
Okay, that's a third. Mr. Olson, thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Committee Member Tieford?
Yes.
Committee Member Acuna?
Yes.
Committee Member Boyd?
Yes.
Committee Member Coles Henry?
Yes.
Committee Member Gupta?
Yes.
Committee Member Graham?
Yes.
Committee Member Olson?
Yes.
And Chairman Martin?
Yes. So we've fulfilled our goal of the 23%. Is there any additional direction that we need to take to the executive committee? I know that some committees are contemplating additional allocations from the bond. So I guess my caution for the committee is to know that this is probably the maximum recommendation we'll be making. My suspicion is that at the executive committee there will be quite a bit of dialogue as it relates to the other priorities within the city. So I think you've made it clear what your priorities are through the survey, and that is to hold strong on Vision Zero all the way through those 6. So I'm assuming that is my mission as I interact with the executive committee moving forward. Is Mr. Tiefert?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a few comments regarding our proposed program here and why it's important. Vision Zero is, even with the increased funding, it's obviously very important for the community. Some of the public comments support it. Plus, the staff has advised in the past that there's a good chance of leveraging the Vision Zero money for more federal funding. I think that should be pointed out. Obviously, the equity-based, we had another comment today on that, on the equity-based transportation improvements are important. Pavement maintenance that to me is a no-brainer. I think if any of these other subcommittees want to challenge that, they could take their opinions to the public about the status of our pavements. The drainage projects, Levine and Hohokam, I think the amount we're leveraging there that staff has been able to leverage is huge, not just for us, but for the whole GO bond program. And I think we've done a good job of, adjusting our program to meet the 22.3% reduction or whatever. And I think it's a very strong program, and I think it should be very defensible.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may make one suggestion, not to cut off any discussion or any other comments,
but I appreciate it.
One of the things that I think just to reflect the committee's charge to the executive committee is just making the prioritization explicit in a motion that's approved by the subcommittee to say that, yes, because you've been operating under the assumption that this is the prioritization that you would go with and that you would want to see moved forward, but we do need that to be reflected in an approved motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and don't want to take up too much of your time, but I heard a lot of the fun conversations from some of our peer subcommittees about their groups, and I think the budget people should be happy that we actually took on some risks to ourselves and actually recommended some cuts and going lower than the recommendation that I don't think we've seen with some of the other subcommittees. And so I just wanted to make that point that this is such an important thing that we need to have, and these can't be deferred, and really putting into the record just how important it is that we've come together and really did the hard work, and that I think there's some that would suggest that we should just go above and beyond and set our bar for this and then settle lower at the executive committee, and I don't think that's the appropriate way that we should do this. I'm proud of what we've done here today. I'm proud that we've managed to really put this together and say that these are the important things for streets and storm drainage, and really provide some infrastructure that is going to be visible for Phoenicians throughout this city. So just wanted to get that on record, that I'm very impressed with the work that this group has done and has really come together with something that I think is going to really help out a lot of people here.
So there's a motion and a second and additional discussion. It's more of an optic for me, and that is that the Levine and Hohokam are separated by pavement maintenance. It just seems to me that those two are like almost joined at the hip, right? So, I don't know, maybe moving pavement maintenance up and then the two projects together, but it's only a visual, so I don't know. It just sort of, I think it's a little bit of the ADD in me. Okay, there's a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote for the prioritization to be as such, dropping number 7.
Committee Member Tiefert?
Yes.
Committee Member Acuna?
Yes.
Committee Member Boyd?
Yes.
Committee Member Coles-Henry?
Yes.
Committee Member Gupta?
Yes.
Committee Member Graham?
Yes.
Committee Member Olson?
Yes.
And Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any other business? Yes, Mr. Boyd.
Now that we have some excess time, I do want to float the idea that I did ask the staff about, which is that I have some folks in the community that have been concerned in the past about seeing bond projects approved and then moved around to other bond projects. I understand that it is within the actual bond, and I assume, though I've not had it fully confirmed, that the bond is going to be a streets bond and a public safety bond and a human services bond, so that those can't go across each other. But I think one of the things that was important was that today we got it. We got to that unanimous consensus and came together and got that deal. I would really hate to have somebody basically go back after voters approve this and then just move things around willy-nilly. I'm looking to see if the committee has the wherewithal that they would like to recommend some sort of safeguard, a supermajority vote in council, or something that restricts just saying, okay, thank you, voters, you approved $35 million for pavement maintenance. We're going to take that and we're going to put it all into this other item. That's what I would just like to see.
As the chair, I'm not sure that non-agenda items are discussable. Would that be a non-agendized item? I'm looking at the attorney here.
I mean, Chair, members of committee, I mean, this is about your recommendation to the executive committee, and so if there's conditions as part of those recommendations, you would want to put that in your recommendation to the executive committee.
Okay.
This is Kevin Olson. I'll comment that while I understand the principle that Member Boyd is concerned about, I've been involved in enough financings of bonds like this to be able to say confidently that it's almost impossible to draft language that accomplishes that goal and still leaves flexibility that you need to have. And so I think we just have to rely on the good faith of staff and the council and our bond counsel, who will draft language that prevents monies being moved around willy-nilly, but is going to allow appropriate adjustments based on what happens in reality. Some of these projects will be more expensive than expected. Some will be less, and you have to have flexibility to deal with that.
Any additional closing comments? Just want to take the opportunity to thank everyone for their time. It was a whirlwind, and we got it done in the less time that was allotted to us, and so incredibly grateful for everybody's input as it relates to listening to the general public. And you know that we have a lot more to do, not to mention the fact that we have a sales pitch to give in next year. Figure this out. Each of you are emissaries to this program, and we hope that you will advocate for it as we move forward in 2023. So with that, the subcommittee is adjourned. Thank you.